Hey everyone. So, as a rule, I don't do cover songs on my channel, other people's stuff. I leave that to the other 9 zillion people on YouTube to do. But today I have a really unusual story on the special, sort of improbable way that Simon and Garfunkel rose to fame. And I'd like to tell the story, and afterward I'm going to cap it off with a old song from Paul Simon. So the story goes like this. Paul and Artie met when they were 11 years old and quickly discovered they had a lot in common. Baseball and doo-wop and singing and music. And by the age of 13, Paul had gotten his first guitar and was fast becoming very proficient as an acoustic guitarist. And they realized that their talents complemented one another. Artie's beautiful voice, Paul's playing and singing. And as Paul tells the story later in life, he said, we met at age 11, we started to play music at age 13, and we started to argue at age 14. And even though he was being tongue-in-cheek at the time, what he was saying was basically true, that they liked each other, they respected each other, they admired each other, and they also envied and resented one another. Paul resented Artie because Artie was taller and much more of a chick magnet than Paul was. Artie resented Paul because, well, Paul was the creative force behind the duo. And he always had the option of being able to take his ball and going home and becoming a soloist if he so chose. And Paul, for his part, resented the fact that when Artie would sing the lead on one of Paul's songs, people naturally assumed that Artie was the songwriter. No, he didn't write the song. I wrote the song. He sings the song. I wrote the song. But people would come back and say, yes, but he probably writes those beautiful harmonies. Says, no, I write the harmonies. He sings the harmonies. Well, you get the idea. These dynamics replayed themselves throughout their career, and they were sometimes on and sometimes off. But it didn't stop them from being wonderfully creative. And by the time they each turned 23, they had their first album out on Columbia Records. And that album was called Wednesday Morning 3 a.m. Now, Columbia had thought that they were talented enough to sign to a contract, but Columbia didn't have high hopes for them. They weren't sure what niche in the marketplace they were going to fill. And after all, from the top brass at Columbia Records, their perspective was, well, this isn't Barbra Streisand, this isn't Tony Bennett, this isn't Frank Sinatra. And as a result, there was very little promotional heft put behind Wednesday Morning 3 a.m. Didn't get a lot of backup from Columbia. And it flopped, didn't sell, created nary a ripple in the music industry. It sold around 3,000 copies. And there was one song, The Sounds of Silence, that got a little college airplay in the Boston area. But by and large, the album was not a success. Disappointed, Artie went back to Columbia University, where he was studying architecture and math. And Paul returned to Europe and the UK. He was already something of a, minor celebrity on the folk circuit in the UK, and he went back there. And they weren't officially broken up, but they weren't together. So what happened was their producer, whose name was Tom Wilson, who had already had success as the producer of the legendary Like a Rolling Stone from Bob Dylan and other Dylan material, he still believed in Simon and Garfunkel, and in particular, he believed in The Sounds of Silence. So one day he had a brainstorm, and after a session with Dylan, he asked the drummer, guitar player, and bass player to stay back and not leave. His idea was to overdub an electric track over the original acoustic version of The Sounds of Silence. So they started with a drum track, and it was interesting. It was hard to actually put the drum track to the song because there was no original drummer, because there was no click track. The tempo of the song meandered. It would speed up, it would slow down. So the words of a prophet are written on a subway. The drummer had to keep following the shifts in tempo, which, as a first-rate studio musician, he was able to do, but it wasn't easy. They put a bass to it, and they added a twangy guitar meant to emulate the 12-string sound that the Byrds were successful with. And so they created a more upbeat, more rock-like song out of the original acoustic song. But the real kicker is they didn't tell Simon and Garfunkel what they were doing. So when Paul and Artie found out that they were planning to re-release this song as a folk rocker, they were outraged. What are you doing? You're bastardizing our song. You're destroying the purity of our song. You can't do that. Listen, we're trying to find a market for your music. The album flopped, but we believe there's a marketplace out there for this song. So quit complaining. All right, but just this once. So Artie was still at Columbia. Paul was still in Europe, traveling around, itinerant musician playing in various folk clubs. And the story goes that he was in Denmark at the time and somehow got a hold of a Billboard magazine, Billboard, the music industry Bible, and he looked at the top 100 charts. And there was The Sound of Silence, number 30, and rising with a bullet. They had a hit on their hands. So he got back to London, and Artie called him on the phone. Come on, man, you've got to come back here. We got to start practicing because we're going to put together a new tour, and we're going to put out a new album. We've got a hit, man. So the bottom line is that what began as an album song that sold 3,000 copies finished number one. And The Sound of Silence, as it was newly named, not The Sounds of Silence, The Sound of Silence, became the 18th most played song in the 20th century. It's quite a credit. And in case you're wondering what the top song of the 20th century was in terms of airplay, it was You've Lost That Love and Feeling by the Righteous Brothers. Who knew? I was surprised too. But the other interesting thing that happened while Paul was in Europe is that he experienced his first love. He met Kathy, and he had a very passionate relationship with Kathy, and she became the inspiration for at least 3 of his songs that I know of. When he wrote Homeward Bound, for example, he wrote it about a railway station that he actually used outside of London, sitting in a railway station thinking about getting home to his love. Home, where my love lies waiting silently for me. And when he wrote the song America, Kathy, I'm lost, I said, though I knew she was sleeping. Well, you get the idea. So the song that I'm going to play today is the least well-known of his Kathy songs. It was written in the U.S. when he was here and Kathy was still in the U.K. And he was pining for her and thinking about being with her. And fittingly, this is called Kathy's Song. I hear the drizzle of the rain, like a memory it falls, soft and warm continuing, tapping on my roof and walls. and from the shelter of my mind, through the window of my eyes, I gaze beyond the rain-drenched streets to England, where my heart lies. My mind's distracted and diffuse. My thoughts are many miles away. They lie with you when you're asleep, kiss you when you start your day. And the song I was writing is left undone. I don't know why I spend my time writing songs I can't believe, with words that tear and strain to rhyme. And so you see, I have come to doubt all that I once held as true. I stand alone without beliefs. The only truth I know is you. And as I watch the drops of rain weave their weary paths and die, I know that I am like the rain, there but for the grace of you. I know that I am like the rain, there but for the grace of you. Go away. And by the way, the thumbnail for this video has a picture of Paul. And with Paul in that picture is Kathy. That's actually Kathy in that picture. Just as a postscript, for many decades now, she has lived in Wales with kids and grandkids, and she's been an administrator at a local university. And she has politely but steadfastly declined all requests for interviews about her time during the 60s. End of story. Thanks for watching.